No job is so important, no service is so urgent that we cannot take the time to perform our work safely. Norfolk Southern presents Operating the Difco Dump Car. This videotape will present the procedures for operating the Difco dump car safely. We will discuss sources of air for dumping, loading, unloading, and maintenance. Difco dump cars are rated by their load capacity. The 50 cubic yard car carries 100 tons of lading and one person can dump it in 8 to 10 seconds. Air compressed to 120 psi is needed to operate the Difco dump car air cylinders. Compressed air can be obtained from 3 sources. The most common source is the locomotive air compressor. The second source you can use is a separate air compressor. And sometimes industrial plant compressed air will be available. When using the locomotive air compressor, be aware that a sudden demand for compressed air can significantly lower the main reservoir pressure. This can delay the air brake application since the compressor now has to recharge both the air brake and the air dump reservoirs. Regardless of which source is used, be sure it has the capacity to charge the car's 200-gallon air dump reservoir. If you are dumping several cars at once, you may need a separate air compressor to maintain the locomotive's main reservoir. Before beginning to charge the air dump reservoir, push the dump handles all the way in and latch them. This opens all the air dump cylinders to exhaust and prevents the car from dumping. It also opens the dump valve so the compressed air will enter the reservoir. Also, when charging, avoid intense heat near the dump reservoir. This could cause the air pressure in the reservoir to go beyond its pressure rating. The air dump reservoir should be charged only when you are ready to dump the lading. Never leave a charged dump car unattended. Someone might pull the handle and cause the car to dump. This could be disastrous if someone were standing on the opposite side of the car. When the car is not going to be dumped, the drain cock on the bottom of the air reservoir should be opened to prevent unauthorized pressurization. When you are charging or dumping several cars, avoid letting the locomotive main air reservoir drop below the brake pipe pressure. If this happens, and there are missing or damaged check valves, undesired brake application may occur. This problem is rare. Its likelihood can be reduced, however, by following this procedure. First, use a separate air compressor for the dump line. Charge the air dump reservoir when the cars are stopped. Set locomotive main reservoir pressure as high as possible. Return the dump handle to the neutral position as soon as the lading has been dumped. And inspect the airline equipment for leakage. The locomotives you are using may have a pipe running from the main air reservoir of the compressor to a flexible hose adjacent to the locomotive coupler. Whenever possible, this should be used to furnish air pressure to the dump line located beside the car coupler, opposite the car train lines, checking the cutoff cock before starting the charge. Train line air may be used when main air reservoir connections are not available, or when dump cars are not adjacent to the locomotives. Caution must be taken when using the train line air. Under normal conditions, pressures in the train line will be reduced when used for dumping, causing an emergency brake application. If the train line pressure is elevated to the 120 psi required, all cars with train lines coupled will have brake application and movement will not be possible. Additionally, all cars with this high brake line pressure will require bleeding air to a reduced pressure for any further movement. In freezing weather, drain the dump reservoirs, the dump cylinders, and the air lines periodically to prevent moisture from building up in the system. The Difco air dump car is rugged and designed for many years of dependable, maintenance-free service. The floor is supported by full-length wide flange beams on 6-inch centers. So the unsupported floor span is only 6 3/4 inches. Smaller rock, less than 6 3/4 inches in diameter, are supported by the 3/8-inch steel floor plate. Larger rock are supported by the floor plate and at least 2 floor beams. Even with this heavy construction, you can prolong the car's service life by following these steps. Put a layer of sand or crushed stone in the car before loading it with heavy rocks. This will protect the body from the heavy falling material. Also be careful not to drop heavy rock on the doors and body ends. Always keep the load low and centered in the car. During transit, an unstable load can shift, causing some of the load to fall. This creates track hazards and could endanger nearby personnel. Certain fine or wet materials have a tendency to stick or freeze to the floor, doors, and ends of the car. Clean the car daily when handling these types of materials. Sticking problems can also be reduced by following these steps. Place a thin layer of filler material such as sand or straw in the bottom of the car before loading the sticky material. Coat the sides and floor of the car with oil. In very cold weather, spray the car with a mixture of concrete form oil and diesel oil. And always dump the car as soon as possible after loading. These are the correct steps to use when dumping the Difco air dump car. 1. Be sure the dump area is clear. 2. Grasp the dump handle on the side of the car opposite the dump area and lift it clear of the safety stops. 3. Pull the handle out. 4. Upon release of the lading, return the dump handle to its original position. When the dump handle is pulled, air enters the dump cylinders on the side of the operator. The cylinders extend, dumping the load away from the operator. Gravity pulls the door operating mechanism open, causing the door to form a flat extension of the car floor. The body tips 50 degrees, discharging the lading at least 7 feet 6 inches away from the track center line. Be sure lading is off the door. Lading on the door can damage the door mechanism as it is forced closed when righting the car. Returning the dump handle to the original position releases the air quickly from the dump cylinders, allowing the weight of the body to return it to the upright position. Do not apply air to the cylinders on the dump side of the car. The Difco car has a safety interlock system that prevents air from being applied to all 4 cylinders at once. During single car dumps, you can accurately control the dumping stroke by controlling the amount of air entering the dump cylinder. By doing this, you can actually stop the car at different points during the dumping stroke. The car has a low loading height and low center of gravity, and the body is supported equally on widely spaced fulcrums that prevent rocking and swaying during transit. With reasonably free-flowing lading, the center of gravity is well within the rails. During a dump, the center of gravity swings outward until the body reaches the fully dumped position. Even with the body extended, the center of gravity is well within the rails. Should the lading be frozen or adhere to the door, the center of gravity can be pulled outside the rail and cause the car to roll over. Quickly dumping a car containing sticky lading can also cause this problem. The dump cylinders build an air cushion at the end of their stroke that helps neutralize the momentum of the body and door. The combination of sticking lading and momentum can upset the car. These basic guidelines can help prevent this from happening. 1. Have the lading flow over the door in a controlled stream rather than a single chunk. 2. Discharge the lading early in the dump stroke. 3. Reach the end of the dumping stroke with as little momentum as possible. When dumping sticky lading, your first dump stroke should clear the material near the open door and the top of the load. With the body partially righted, a quick second application of the dump line air pressure should free the stuck lading and allow it to slide from the car. The Difco air dump car's cross-arm construction tie the body to the underframe while holding the upper door closed. This ensures proper operation of the door operating mechanism. When dumping over the higher side rail, the center of gravity of the car and load move away from the dump side. This shifts more of the load onto the dump cylinders, causing them to have a slower dumping action. If the car is heavily overloaded, the car will not dump. The following steps will aid you in dumping over the high side rail. 1. Increase air pressure until dumping action starts. 2. Dump at a level location. 3. Remove the excess lading by other means. The opposite occurs when dumping over the lower side rail. The center of gravity of the car and load move toward the lower rail. This decreases the stability of the car and could cause the car to roll. Always follow these steps when dumping over the lower side rail. 1. Dump the car slowly to decrease the momentum. 2. Avoid sticky materials or prepare the car with a coating of oil. 3. Load the car lightly to keep a low center of gravity for more stability. The doors on the car open automatically as the car dumps and close as it returns to its original position. The door mechanism allows the door to float on the lading without damage during dumping operations. As a safety feature, a cutoff mechanism shuts the air off after the door has completely opened. This happens when the body is tipped to approximately 35 degrees. The pressure already in the air cylinders complete the dumping operation. If the door does not open, starts to open, then sticks, or hits an obstruction, the cutoff mechanism will stop the dump cycle after approximately 5 degrees additional tipping. If the problem is sticky lading or low air pressure, you can overcome the spring pressure and fully dump the material by pulling on the dump handle again. Always check the lading as it is being dumped. When dumping over an embankment close to the track, most of the lading will fall over the embankment. However, when the embankment has been built up or cars continuously dump in the area, the lading may stay on the door. In some instances, the lading may be heavy enough to prevent the righting of the body. When this happens, leave the dump handle in the dump position. Watch the car as it moves forward and the lading falls off the door. Then push the dump handle when the car can be righted. Never, ever try to right the car by applying the cylinders on the dump side of the car. If sticky lading is a problem, establish fixed dumping points. This allows you to prepare for sticky loads. Construct these structures parallel to the rails and located to contact and support the extended car door. Remember, do not try to right an open door with lading on it. This can only cause damage to the door operating mechanism by forcing it to close around the trapped lading. Pull the car forward and remove the lading by other means. Another potential problem associated with sticky lading is derailment. If the sticky lading releases suddenly, the wheel flanges of the car may lift above the rail and the simultaneous side reaction force may push the car off the rail toward you. The proper solution is to install an inner guardrail to retain the wheel flanges on the discharge side. This helps prevent derailment of the low side wheel. Use standard maintenance procedures for trucks, brakes, and other railway car specialties. The dump car operating mechanism pins, dump cylinder pins, and trunnions should be lubricated every 6 months. At the same time, the dump cylinder should be checked to be sure it does not run out of hydraulic oil. The cylinder holds 5 gallons of hydraulic oil. Whenever the inner cylinder appears dry, add Standard Oil Ohio, Intergol HPL 22 or equivalent, 1 quart at a time. First, add the oil through the inner cylinder vent. Then, add through the air pipes connected to the air dump cylinder. Excess oil will flow from the dump valve or the push rod at full extension. Refer to Parts Drawing S1036, Dump Cylinder Assembly and Cross-Section with Parts List for specific locations. Use the same oil on the dump valves. For roller bearings on the wheels and axles, consult the AAR lubrication manual. Use number 72777 Shell center plate lubricant or lubricant of equal value when lubricating the center plate. Service the air brakes as required by American Association of Railroads. Always use the proper oil and grease when servicing the car. Use Bel-Ray, Molly-Lube AC1000 or equivalent on the dump cylinder trunnions, push rod pins, and mechanism pins. If servicing calls for you to remove the dump cylinders, torch out the welded trunnion bearing locks, 6482-220, at the outer end of the cylinder brackets, then follow the procedures shown on drawing S935. The Difco air dump car represents a giant step in dump car technology. If you follow these operating procedures and maintain the car properly, it will allow you to do your job safely and efficiently.